Now, the Home Office do have reasonable concerns about letting in the wrong sorts of people. But, Sarah Vine, I guess you would say this is an unprecedented moment. We need to just throw open the doors.
Yeah, I mean, it's an emergency. We just need to get them out of harm's way. And I'm not saying that they should come and live here for the rest of their lives. To be perfectly honest, I don't think they want to. I think a lot of the people leaving the Ukraine would rather not be leaving the Ukraine, or they don't really have a choice. And a lot of them are leaving behind their husbands and their partners and their children, you know, their sons. I mean, they'll want to get back there and rebuild as soon as they possibly can. But I just think, I don't know if we had a very good thing in the paper today explaining what they have to do to even be, I mean, they've got to fill in a form online. They've got to pay to have their documents translated and, you know, by official translators. They've got to prove that they were residents in the Ukraine from the 1st of January. I mean, there's all sorts of hoops that they have to jump through, which frankly, I would struggle to jump through if I had to fill in a passport application form. I do understand that there are concerns. I do understand that we don't want to let the wrong people in. But I honestly think that if you are, you know, you're a mother with a baby and it's got a wet nappy on and it's been crying for 2 days and you haven't really you've got 10% on your battery, how are you supposed to do any of this stuff? I mean, they get to Calais, they get sent 200 kilometres back in the opposite direction.
I mean, they're essentially asking victims of war to go interrailing around Europe whilst reading forms in a foreign language on a phone that's going to probably run out of battery.
How are you going to find an official translator to translate your identity documents when you're being cluster bombs are raining down on you? I mean, it's just and like I said, I do understand that they don't want to let the wrong people in, but the problem, this is also a bigger thing. This actually shows how useless the Home Office is. I mean, the Home Office has been described as not fit for purpose, and that was probably before Dominic was born. So it's not a recent problem. But you know, the fact is, you know, they arrive at Calais and they were getting a piece of paper stuck to a wall. I mean, at least someone there with a cup of tea and a pork pie would have been nice.
Dominic, you do have concerns, though, don't you? You don't like this concept of throw open the doors because that's a position that you've held, talking about Afghanistan and also talking about Hong Kong.
Yeah, I think with these issues, you sort of have to be consistent. And the reason why it's really weird when I hear these sorts of arguments is these are the exact arguments that were used to justify people coming across the channel. And the resounding consensus on that was that, you know, we need to know who we're letting in the country. And people that were encouraging were saying, where is your compassion?
I do think it's different. I do think it's different, though, because those people coming across the channel are... They are living, you know, they're
already
not,
in France.
They're already in France. In many cases, they've been there for a long time. They're not. They
potentially plan to
They're not in that.
But you just
what we have with the Ukraine now is this sort of shock. You know, this thing's been happening for 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks.
Well, I do kind of challenge that, though, because, you know, there has been a civil war in eastern Ukraine since 2014. So, you know...
Not on this scale.
Not on this particular scale, but there has been civil war with people having to endure shelling. I think over 14,000 people have died since the conflict started in 2014. So I'm afraid
it just feels very acute. It just feels like it's a very acute. It's just very, very acute.
I think it feels very acute because of obviously the proximity of Ukraine and it's a European country. But at the same time, you know, people that flee from Africa and the Middle East, a lot of them are coming from countries that endure civil war as well.
But also, the other thing to say is that most of these people coming from the Ukraine are vast majority of women, children and old ladies. They're not men.
And they're not economic refugees like the ones coming across.
So a lot of the ones that we see coming across on the small boats, I mean, I'm not saying that they are also not leaving terrible situations and that they aren't completely right to try and find a better life. But they're young men. They're not as vulnerable.
This feels like evacuees during World War
II. It does,
and we really.
I think we need to be aware of that.
You have to be consistent, though, because, for example, with Afghanistan, I urged caution with that as well. I just don't think we're in a position to be opening the floodgates to the rest of the world. And yeah, I think Ukrainian refugees are important, but I think they should have to go by the same rules as any other.
I just think the one area where I have quite a bit of sympathy for the Home Office is that if in 3, 4, 5 years' time there's a terrorist attack...
They're not going to be here in 3, 4, 5 years.
No, but the point is they have been so burnt in the past, it is right that they have to check.
It's not as all the hoops that they make people jump through have stopped terrorists from coming.
Exactly.
I mean, whatever it is they're doing, it's not working.
And if we look at the rest of the...
I mean, they have